Hello guys, it's me, Red the Dinosaur, and with my second episode of my new series. Today I want to talk about my favorite car that had its 25th anniversary and that was highly celebrated by its brand. Yes, it's the Porsche Carrera GT that Porsche was able to make a full-on collection of clothing about the Carrera GT. I don't want to even know the price because I know it's gonna be expensive as hell. But what I appreciate is the videos that they made about all the developers of the Carrera GT, especially with its test driver that was Walter Rowe, and many other people of the brand that were included in the project when it started. So it makes a really good history overall about the Carrera GT. I will leave you the links of these two videos on the description and in the eye on the sky because they give you a good context about the Carrera GT and the history behind the real people that developed the car. But this video for me is very special because it's my point of view and my thoughts and opinions on how much I like the Carrera GT and my opinions about it. So the Carrera GT, when it got released, I wasn't actually interested on it. I was more interested on American cars like the Dodge Viper and the Chevrolet Corvette. I wasn't that impressed with European cars like I do now. And for me, it was, another exotic, nothing out of this world. But that usually happens when you are young, and especially when these cars are new, that you kind of see them with another eyes, that they aren't exactly what do you expect, especially if you're younger. And it's something that I touched upon my Ferrari design review that I made, that you can check it out if you want to. Is that for me it wasn't that great. For me, like, I thought the Ferrari Enzo was a better car. Well, without knowing the disaster of a transmission that they had, but that's a story for another day. So for me, it wasn't exactly that impressive in 2004, and even in the final of the 2000s, I wasn't more interested in American cars. But I started to appreciate the car in the 2020s when certain a tragic event happened for me, and I had a lot of time. Meanwhile, that event happened to just check around, to just put my mind in another thing, and I started reading more about the history about this car and how cool it was, and how much of an icon for the brand and for all car enthusiasts this car had. And that name started to just bouncing on my head and just started that curiosity to just keep knowing more about the car. What was its intention? What was the history? And especially the history of the power plant, the V10, that by itself is a history by its own. And that started like that snowball going on my head. And after that, I started to just see how valuable and how iconic this car is. And I started, as usual, like many people out there, just playing with the car in games. And yeah, the sound is fantastic, especially in a few games. I would say Need for Speed Hot Pursuit 2010 did the best job. I know that there is other games that managed to replicate the sound of the Carrera GT very well, but for me, Hot Pursuit 2010 was like the best sound of the Carrera GT. Yes, there is many other games with the Carrera GT, but for me this is the best one. And that started like a snowballing, and for me just was a good way to keep my head occupied of that certain event. And when, well, that happened, yeah, it was very tragic, the outcome of that event. But I started to just appreciate it more, and that started like again my adventure to know more about the cars of the decade of the 2000s, even the 1990s, and getting in depth into the sports cars, and or you can just call it the retro modern sports car of that era. And for me, it was just another thing to just appreciate Porsche for what it is. Like, the brand itself cares a lot about its history, and that's not common. Like, Ferrari does it, BMW does it, Mercedes does it. So for Porsche, it was more interesting for its motorsport, that for me was like really cool to have the 956. They know about cars like the new 963, the 919, and many of these racing models was something very special for me. And exactly one car that I want to mention, the 911 GT1 1998, but that's an episode for its own, because that was the car that started me in Porsche when I was very young, so that deserves a video of its own. But overall, the Carrera GT was very important for me because made me, in some way, uh, just pass away a very difficult moment of my life. And even when I didn't have an opportunity, and probably I'm never gonna have the opportunity to drive a Carrera GT, experience it on video games kinda made me, cope a bit better with that situation. And in some way kind of changed my life, in my way changed the perspective of how I see cars overall, and how I appreciate more older cars than modern cars, and how important they are for the history of a car enthusiast. Like, the Carrera GT probably is going to be the last analog supercar, or hypercar if you want to put it in that, of any Porsche. And I'm probably going to say it's going to be the last analog hyper supercar. Because nowadays, all the cars count with a lot of help, with to ABS, to traction control, to a lot of technology helping the driver, which again, it makes the car safer, but for someone that wants a more pure and a bit more raw experience of driving, makes it a bit boring. And the Carrera GT, since doesn't have too much of these assistances, makes it for a pure experience that only a few can master. I know that the Carrera GT was this tragic car that killed Paul Walker, and many speculate that was the car. And in some way, I will say I kinda have to agree on that situation, because in this video that Jason Kmisa did about the Carrera GT, he actually pointed out that the test models that were given to car reviewers were totally different to the actual cars that were given to owners, and that give it that like fame, or of being a difficult car to drive. Many people speculate it's the tires, and it's backed up by actually serious people like Jay Leno, actually owner of a Carrera GT, and many others. But I truly believe on what Jason Kmisa said in his video, that probably 600 horsepower with no assistances is the top. Is pretty much the top of the horsepower you can manage without assistances, and that makes it a very difficult car to drive. Also mentioning him that he said that he knows someone else that had a McLaren F1 that also drives that bad, that is a difficult car to drive. And for me, is something very special. I know that many people will say, why do you want a car that pretty much is gonna kill its owner? Well, not many cars do that, and these type of cars are respected in some way, these widowmakers. And this is not the first Porsche. The older 911 Turbo, I think older GT2s are also in that list. Other cars of other brands like the first Dodge Viper, the AC Cobra 427, like those cars are well known to be very, very difficult to drive, and that if you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna be seriously injured or even dead. So for me, that speaks that you need a lot of skill to drive these cars, and the Carrera GT deserves a lot of respect, and that not a lot of people, even when you can afford to buy one, you need to be able and skillful enough to drive one of these cars, and that for me is very, very cool. That a car that actually tests you, and if you drive it very well, is gonna reward you. But if you gonna drive it that badly, it's gonna be a punishment. So for me, yeah, the Carrera GT was a game changer. In probably is there is not gonna be a car like this for a while. Like probably GMA, Gordon Murray Automotive, could do something with it, about something close to the Carrera GT, because well, they are the only ones that are kinda able to make their cars analog enough, due to the fact that Gordon Murray was pretty much the father of the McLaren F1, and that car is also very analog by its own. So overall, yeah, this is a car that I respect, that I absolutely love. I think the design looks fantastic, that is different to a 911, but at the same time you can recognize it as a Porsche. The engine is fantastic. I think the history of an engine that was intended for F1 and later on for an LMP 900 prototype that never got developed, and later soon that engine went to a supercar like this, is really cool. And the fact that, yeah, doesn't you need to be skillful to drive it? Yeah, it's really, really nice to have a car like this that exists. And that I really applaud Porsche to celebrate the 25th anniversary of this car, because it needs to be celebrated. It's a car that probably is unique by its own, and is unique in these modern times that everything has a computer. So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Let me know your opinion about the Porsche Carrera GT in the comment section. What do you think about it? And what is your favorite car overall? So yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much, and see you on the next one. Goodbye.